The Torah portion which we read for this Shabbat is Parshat Vayikra. And the reason why it's called Parshat Vayikra is because the very first word in the portion, just like the very first word in the third book of the Torah, is called, wait for it, Vayikra. Actually, if you say it like the Israelis, you say Vayikra. But if you take a look, and I don't know if you at home can see, maybe we can put the Torah cam on. Is it not plugged in good? It is plugged in. Zippity-doo-dah. Okay. You'll take a look at this first word, and this first word is, God, you guys are good. Okay, so if you take a look at this first word, I'm going to focus it. You'll notice something strange about the first word. What is weird? Oops, sorry, now I'm really screwing it up. Well, it's a little blurry, but that's okay. What do you notice about this little guy? The aleph of that first word is written smaller than the average letter. That is not a rabbinic typo. It's been that way for thousands of years. And so the commentators ask, what's the deal with the small aleph? And there's a Ukrainian Jewish sage, one of the early Hasidim, Menachem Nachum of Chernobyl, who wrote his commentary, Me'ori Naim, that our sages taught that when a person walks through a dangerous place and they can't stop to say all their prayers in full, they should say a short prayer. And that short prayer should say, in every time of passage, may their needs come before you. In other words, no matter what I'm doing with, let my needs come before God. That's the best prayer you should say if you're short of time. And the Talmud says that even when you turn toward a transgression, even when we do the wrong thing, O God, let our needs be revealed to you. The danger being the danger that we're going to do something wrong. And so Menachem Nachum teaches that God is present in reduced form within every single one of us. Even the most wicked person has that little nikud, that little piece of God's presence. And it's seen in the fact that even those who do terrible things often will display some flash of conscience. And this is that voice of God from within calling out, hey, come back to me. But sometimes that person doesn't understand that that is the voice of God calling to them. And so here at the beginning of the book of Leviticus, we see something strange. We see that it says, Vayikra el Moshe, and he called to Moses, Vayidaber Adonai elav, and God spoke to him saying, well, what does it mean God called to Moses and then said to him? Why doesn't it just say, and God said to him, and God called to him? Why do we have these two different things? And the answer is that sometimes God calls out to us, and we can't hear. Because after all, what sound does an aleph make? Right? The sound of an aleph is, it only makes whatever sound of the vowel that's attached to it. An aleph makes no sound. The Torah begins with the letter Bet, B. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'aretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But why does the Torah start with the second letter of the aleph Bet and not the first? That aleph is that voice of God that speaks to us only when we really seek to listen. We're taught in the book of Numbers, in chapter 7, that the voice of God addressed the people from within the Holy of Holies, from within the tent of meeting. And this is where God speaks to Moses, not to Aaron, but to Moses. That God speaks from within the deepest part of the sanctuary in the same way that God speaks to us in the deepest part of ourselves. And why does it say, Vayikra el Moshe, and then God spoke to all of the children of Israel following? because only Moses could hear what God intended for Moses to hear. So often I think we're trying to hear what we think other people are supposed to hear, or we tend to tell other people what we think they're supposed to hear because that's what we hear. Ultimately, God speaks to us uniquely, individually, from that little aleph that is placed within inside of us. And when we can hear that voice of God call out from within, then we might also hear that voice of God that, as Psalm 29 teaches, is strong enough to break the cedars of Lebanon, to cause the wilderness to shake, and to cause us to return back to the path in life that we are destined to follow and that we are called to observe. Shabbat Shalom.